Welcome. Before I continue discussing the characters of Pteridophyta, I would like to discuss a small topic that I have forgot to discuss under Bryophyta, and that is biological and economic importance of Bryophytes. So first, I'll discuss about that and then continue with the characters of Pteridophytes. So let's begin this session with biological and economic importance of bryophytes. Right. So here bryophytes, they generally have little economic importance. So humans don't get much benefit from these plants. So that is, they are having very little economic importance. Then some bryophytes are used as food for herbaceous mammals. So used as food for herbaceous mammals and okay to birds and other animals. So here herbaceous mammals, herbaceous, which means okay the mammals who feed on vegetation. So mammals who feed on vegetation, they are called herbaceous mammals. So some species of bryophytes are used as food for herbaceous mammals. Then, okay, species of sphagnum. Okay, species of a sphagnum. So this sphagnum is a moss. Okay, so of course, this is results, I mean, this one in course of time have resulted in the formation of a peat. So it's commonly called peat moss. So species of sphagnum, so which is commonly called okay peat moss. So this one actually right provides peat. So it provides peat. Okay, and this peat is used as fuel. So peat is used as fuel. Okay, so this peat actually is formed due to partial decomposition of right this sphagnum. Okay, of course there are many other species of plants that also have contributed in the formation of peat. So here, especially as we are talking about bryophytes, I am referring this sphagnum. Okay, so here right, so the partial decomposition, the partial decomposition of sphagnum, okay, and its accumulation over a long period of time, so resulted in formation of peat, resulted in formation of peat, and that peat now is being used as a fuel. Then the peat also have capacity to hold water. Peat also has capacity to hold water. Right. So for that purpose, this peat is being used as a packing material. Okay, for transporting living organisms. or living materials. So hence it is, so for this reason it is used as packing material for transportation of living materials, like say suppose right, so fishes or some kind of okay uh, other eatables, okay, organisms, so which need to be transported from one place to another place for a long time, and they need to be in fresh conditions. So because of that they put those living materials in the peat, okay, and then spray water. So the peat takes up that water and then keeps, okay, wet conditions all the time, so that the living materials will not undergo any drying. So peat is used, okay, as a packing material also. So in some case, in it is also used as fuel, and it is also used as packing material. Then the mosses and lichens have great ecological importance. Mosses and lichens have great ecological importance. So what we mean by this having great ecological importance. Okay, so here they actually decompose rocks and make soil. So these mosses and lichens, they break down rocks and, okay, make soil, right? And due to formation of soil, right, it will be suitable for the growth of higher plants. On the rocks higher plants cannot grow. So these lower group of plants like mosses and the lichens, okay, when they grow they secrete some kind of substances which dissolves the rock, and in course of time that gets converted to form soil, and the formation of soil will help in growth of higher plants. So the formation of soil helps in growth of higher plants. Okay, so this is what we call succession. So later in second year, in the almost last chapters, we will study in detail about this succession. So how the rocks get okay, broken down and then results in the formation of soil, okay, and that helps in the growth of higher plants. All that we will see, okay, in second year. Right, so that's about the mosses and lichens who have great ecological importance. Then the mosses form dense mats, form dense mats. Okay, means they will be growing on the soil. So they will be growing on the soil just like a mat, and growing like this on the soil, okay, will help in preventing soil erosion. So this prevents soil erosion. So soil erosion is a removal of a top layer of soil due to movement of water. So especially in heavy rains or during floods, the top layer, so that will be fertile layer of the soil, will be removed. Okay, so that can be prevented, okay, if there is a growth of mosses. So if mosses grow and form dense mat on the soil, so even in the heavy rains or, okay, in other conditions, okay, it will prevent the soil erosion, that is removal of a top layer of the soil, right? That's right, a small information on biological and economical importance of bryophytes. Okay. Right, so this is a small topic which I missed while discussing the bryophytes. So now we'll get back, okay, to the group pteridophyta. So in the last session I started discussing these pteridophyta, so now we'll continue discussing the characters of group pteridophyta. Right, so already we have seen few characters in this case, and I was discussing about reproduction in pteridophyta. Right, so uh, I have told that, okay, in the last session, that they form, okay, strobili or cones, okay, and of course these strobili are cones or aggregation of sporophylls, and I have told you that, so there will be, okay, uh, leaf-like structures on which we see the presence of sporangia. So we can see the presence of sporangia. Okay, so this is what we call the sporophyll. Okay, and these are, okay, sporangia. Now these sporophylls, okay, in higher groups of pteridophytes, they form something called this as strobili or cones. So that strobilus, so singular is a strobilus. So it looks, okay, in this way. So this is how a strobilus looks like. Okay, right, and this is the sporophyll, is sporophyll. Okay, and here is the sporangium. So here we see the presence of sporangium, and inside the sporangium we see the development of spores. So this is sporangium. Okay, so this is how a strobilus looks like, right? Then, okay, so here whatever that spores which are formed, okay, so these spores actually are formed by meiosis process from the spore mother cells. So there will be spore mother cells, okay, present inside the sporangium, and these spore mother cells will be diploid, and they undergo the process of meiosis and results in the formation of spores, and these spores will be haploid. Okay, and these spores will be released, and these spores, when get a suitable, okay, locations, they germinate and give rise to a multicellular free living, okay, structure. So here spores upon germination, so upon germination, so it give rise to a structure called prothallus. So this prothallus is multicellular, means many made up of many cells. Then it is free living, means it doesn't depend on, okay, the sporophyte. So it has completely away from the sporophyte. So multicellular, free living, and then in most of the cases it will be having photosynthetic thalloid. Okay, so mostly photosynthetic thalloid structure. Okay, which means in most of the cases, okay, it will perform the photosynthesis, and as its body is not differentiated, I called it thalloid structure. Okay, so it's multicellular, okay, free living, which means it doesn't depend on the sporophyte, and mostly it is photosynthetic thalloid structure. So it performs photosynthesis and its body is thallus, right? Okay, so that's this prothallus is the gametophyte. So it's the gametophyte. The prothallus is a gametophyte. I hope we remember that the alternation of generations in plants, the sporophyte will give rise to gametophyte, okay, and the gametophyte later will give rise to sporophyte. So here the spores upon germination, they have given rise to, okay, a thalloid structure that is called gametophyte, and it is capable of performing photosynthesis, okay, free living and multicellular, right? Now these gametophytes actually require, okay, so that is prothallus. For the growth of a prothallus, it requires cool, damp and moist, okay, shady soils. Okay, so the gametophyte requires, so, cool, damp and shady places for its growth. Okay, so for its growth. So without this, it cannot grow. So it requires cool locations, damp locations, and there must be, okay, shade. So only if these conditions are present, then it likes to grow. Okay, so because of this specific requirement, so because of this specific requirement of environment, and also water is needed for the purpose of fertilization, okay, and water is required for fertilization. So just like how we have seen in case of bryophytes, there also water is required. Okay, so here also water is required for fertilization. So for this requirement, so gametophyte will not grow if these conditions are not present. So it requires cool, damp, shady places, and also it requires water for fertilization. So because of these things that are required, okay, the number of pteridophytes is limited. So here these cool, damp and shady places, nowadays it has become very very less, okay, uh, and because of these two criteria, the distribution of pteridophytes is limited, okay, right? So this resulted in limited distribution, of pteridophytes. So both the conditions should be present. So even if one condition and the water is not present, or the one or the other, if both conditions do not exist, then there is no chance of pteridophyte growth. Okay. So for these two criteria, the requirement, okay, of these two criteria has limited the distribution of pteridophytes. Now these gametophytes will produce sex organs. So they develop sex organs. So gametophytes will develop sex organs. Okay, so I'll just mention gametophyte, and this will have the male sex organ that will be antheridium, and the female sex organ, and that will be archegonium. Okay, so male sex organ and female sex organs. So we know the antheridium produces anthrozoids, whereas archegonium produces egg. Okay, so now water is required for the transportation of this anthrozoid to the egg. Okay, so that is what I have mentioned here. So water is required for fertilization. So now once this anthrozoid and an egg, okay, unite, so that results in fertilization and development of zygote, and this will be 2n, because we know the gametophyte is already haploid. Okay, right, and these anthrozoids and eggs, so these are also haploid. And okay, so two haploid cells united and resulted in the formation of zygote. Okay, so now this zygote will be developing into multicellular and well differentiated sporophyte. Okay, so later it develops into, of course, embryo, and then it develops into sporophyte. So this is 2n will develop into sporophyte. Okay, we know that already, that in pteridophytes, sporophyte is the dominant stage, whereas in case of bryophytes we have seen the gametophyte is dominant stage. So now this sporophyte, okay, is well differentiated and it is multicellular. Okay, so it's multicellular, okay, and also well differentiated. So here well differentiated, which means it has true roots, okay, true stems and leaves. So that's a well differentiated form. So later the sporophyte again produces spores, okay, okay, in the cones or in okay, especially the cones or the sporangia, which are present, okay, on those sporophylls. So they produce spores, and those spores upon germination again give rise to these gametophytes. Okay, so right, so that is how the life cycle takes place, okay, in pteridophytes. And I'll just mention again, so this is the dominant phase, which means the plant will live most of okay, it's in the life, it will be present in the form of sporophyte. So if you look at the trees, what you see, so all those are sporophytes. So they may produce flowers in certain period of time, so those flowers will have actually gametophytes inside. So that we will discuss it later. Okay, so now the flowers are produced now and then, but what remains for a very long time is the tree. Okay, so that plant, so that is sporophyte. So whatever you are seeing, so those flowering plants are actually angiosperms. In angiosperms also the dominant phase is sporophyte. Okay, so here also the dominant phase is sporophyte. So I hope that part is clear, so we understood what actually is the meaning of this dominant phase, right? Now, okay, here in majority of pteridophytes, in majority of uh, pteridophytes, they are going to produce, so they produce, okay, similar spores, or they are going to produce okay, same kind of spores. Okay, there is no differentiation of spores. So those pteridophytes who produce spores in similar size, okay, so they are called homosporous. So they are called homosporous. Okay, right. And in some pteridophytes, or in other pteridophytes, okay, so they produce two kinds of spores. So they produce two kinds of spores. So those two kinds of spores will be like the formation of megaspores and the formation of okay, microspores. Okay, megaspores and microspores. If it is the case, then the condition is called heterosporous. Okay, so here in majority of pteridophytes are homosporous. So why I call majority of pteridophytes homosporous? Because they produce, okay, similar type of spores. Okay, there is no differentiation in size, okay, or in functionality. So they are called homospores. Now here in other group or other pteridophytes, they produce two, okay, types of spores. One will be megaspore and one will be micro okay, spores. So these megaspores will act like okay, the female, whereas this one will be the male. So of course on germination, so this megaspores on germination will give rise to female gametophyte, whereas the microspores will give rise to male gametophyte. Okay, so here the megaspores will give rise to, okay, female gametophyte, whereas microspore, their germination will give rise to male gametophyte, will give rise to male gametophyte. Okay, so of course if it is a homosporous, then it will produce only a one gametophyte that will have, okay, both male and female sex organs. So in this case, okay, the female gametophyte will have female sex organ, that will be archegonium. So this will have archegonium. Okay, and in this case it will have antheridium, will have antheridium. Okay, right. But if it is homosporous, okay, whatever the spore that germinates, it will give rise to the gametophyte. Okay, so here the gametophyte, only one gametophyte will have both male and female sex organs. Okay, so here you can see there is a differentiation in the gametophyte. So they became dioecious. So in this case it is monoecious if the homosporous condition exists. Okay, so megaspores will be having the female, okay, sex organs, and microspores are, okay, the male structure. So here megaspores are treated as a female, okay, and microspores are treated as males. Next, these female gametophytes, okay, so these female gametophytes are retained on the parent sporophyte. The female gametophytes are retained on the parent sporophyte. Okay, so they are not released. Okay, so unlike in the case of these the, okay, the microspores, here the female gametophytes are retained on the parent sporophyte, and here the fertilization and development of zygote into sporophyte, all that takes place, okay, in the female gametophyte only. So here retaining the female gametophyte on the parent sporophyte is a precursor, okay, to the seed habit. So this, okay, is a precursor to the seed habit. Okay, so later we'll see in case of gymnosperms and angiosperms, okay, the seed formation will be seen, and in that case, okay, these female gametophytes will not be released from the sporophyte. So whatever that tree you see, okay, is the sporophyte, and the gametophyte I told you that is present in the flowers. And okay, the seed formation, so seed is actually a sporophyte, so its formation takes place on the parent sporophyte itself. Okay, so that started from, okay, this group called pteridophytes. So female gametophytes are retained on the parent sporophyte, which is a precursor to the seed habit. Right, so with this, I will end today's session. So in the next session, I will discuss in detail the life cycle, okay, of a homosporous pteridophyte and the life cycle of a heterosporous pteridophyte in detail. Okay, we'll see in the next session.